hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bold Unstoppable Show this evening. I am Dr. Rochelle Marie Lawson, and today we are pulling back the carpet on the topic called The Algorithm versus Our Daughters. And the theme is really about social media, mental health, our young women. I have some wonderful esteemed panelists with me, and I'm going to give them a moment to share, a little bit about themselves. But the synopsis today is between filters, comparison culture, online bullying, and nonstop content on social media. This is deeply impacting women and girls' mental health. And this episode is about tackling the anxiety, depression, body shame, body image, self-worth, and the pressure to perform and be that perfect person online we all know does not exist. Panelists today will discuss their own experiences, they'll discuss parenting challenges, as well as a way to protect our young women and our sisters at our age's own mental health. So, if you have a daughter, granddaughters, cousins that are girls, or anybody in your family that's a lady that you know and feel that might be impacted just a little bit about this social media stuff, stay tuned because the filters, the comparison, the likes, the follows, all that crap is going to be discussed. The silent pressure to look perfect, to have it all together, and to be that all the time we know is not reality. But what these girls see on social media, they take and they hold it dear to themselves, and particularly to young ladies don't understand that that is not real life what we see on social media. You can project and portray yourself any way you want to be, and ain't nobody really gonna follow up to see if it's actually accurate, except for those who might be close and know you. So with that as the opener, I want to begin with introducing our guest, and we'll go ahead and start with Beth.
Thank you. I am an author, a songwriter, and a mother of three 30-somethings, and challenging at this point now that they're older. So you don't have that kind of, you wish you had the power, but you lose a little bit of it. I started writing about 4 years ago because I had stories in my head for 25 years, and I didn't think I was good enough to do it. And that touches on, what happens to us when we get to a certain age and we say, yeah, I can do it. I can do it, and I can do it well.
Well, thank you, Beth, for being a part of today's panelist. Let's move on to Cynthia.
All right. Hello, everybody. As they said, my name is Cynthia Pia. I'm a systems architect. I'm a trained social worker, but I am now the CEO and founder of my own business. Beauty from Within Coaching and Consulting is an empowerment tech ecosystem. And this episode was very dear to my heart because I do teach on digital strategy and digital matrix. So this is a perfect segue for me to speak on how we can improve that.
Well, thank you, Miss Cynthia, for being a guest panelist
Thank
on
you.
today's show. How about you, Miss Nikki?
Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki Green, and I work with aspiring entrepreneurs to help them through their initial challenges to start businesses. I spent the last 25 years working in Silicon Valley, helping a lot of them do it. So I'm very close to a lot of the tech and worked with many of these big tech companies while I was there. But now that I'm here in Chicago helping smaller businesses, one of the things I also do is coach girls volleyball. So I am around young women, middle school and high school age all the time, and seeing the influence of their, not only on the girls on my team, but also my own stepdaughter who's 14, definitely opening my eyes as to what's really going on out there. So thanks for having me.
Well, welcome, Nikki. And Kimberly, you joined us late. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, and I truly apologize. I am Kimberly Johnson. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I am licensed in multiple states, but my primary license is out of the state of Indiana. I have been doing this for 23 years. I am the director of the counseling center at a private Lutheran university in Indiana. I also own my own private practice. I'm also a licensed minister, and I have a ministry called Becoming Her, in which I work with young adult women.
Oh, welcome, Kimberly. Nice to have you. Okay, ladies,
Thank
I'm going
you.
to jump right into our first question. And the first question I have for you panelists is, what has been your personal relationship with social media? And how has it affected your esteem or mental health? And you can take that, whoever wants to take it and jump in, go right ahead. Don't be shy.
I can start. Oh,
Well, I'll
go.
start.
Just go. Just
Oh, I'm
somebody
sorry. Go
please.
ahead, Kimberly. Go ahead.
so for
Oh,
me, I think
okay.
especially with starting
Well,
a
I'll
private
start. You know,
practice.
I do teach.
Okay, let me do this. Let me call on you. Kimberly, go ahead. And then I'll just call on you to just make it easier.
Okay. With me, it has been
Okay,
a
yeah.
strange
There's also a
relationship.
delay, so that's why.
There has been a strange relationship with social media. I think, particularly in starting my private practice, I also had a podcast at one point for a couple of years. And I think in the pandemic in particular, there was this push then to do all of this advertising and all of this posting and really making sure that there's an image out there and looking a certain way when you post and making sure you're posting the right things. And I find myself being sucked into that. And I thought about all of the things that I'm helping, my clients work through, all the self-esteem work that I'm doing. I also do life coaching. So all the coaching I'm doing, working with other women, I found myself having to use my own advice because I was so caught up in making sure that I was doing all the right things and trying to mimic what other people were doing and making sure I was showing up the right way, that it became a toxic relationship. And I had to really make a decision to pull back and dial back and just focus on doing the work and not the image of the work, because it's so easy to get caught up in that. And in that, I really took what I learned from that to really help young women in particular when thinking about image and how you show up and how you perceive yourself and worried about body image and how you look and hair and all the things, because it becomes so important that really overshadows the message and the work that you're trying to put out there.
Oh, yes. Very nice. Well put. What about you, Miss Beth? What are your thoughts with regards to that?
I think the pandemic was something because I have older daughters. The social media blitz that young women are going through today, my daughters kind of they weren't young anymore, but I did have to tell them that some of the things that they were posting was probably not a great idea. And I do admit I was lucky because I always taught them that you're beautiful as you are, and people are going to love you for the authentic you, not one that you make up. And I was very lucky that they did exactly that. They're not big posters. Yes, I would say my youngest daughter, Instagrams, I see her scrolling, and I'm like, okay, that's enough. We're out to dinner. Stop scrolling. But I was lucky that they got over that hump and they were already adults, and they kind of make fun of me.
So let me turn it over to Nikki. Nikki, what are your thoughts about that question?
Yeah, I think I kind of agree a bit with Kimberly too, is before, when I was using social media before the pandemic and before I had this business, it was like, here's my food, here's where I'm going, here's a group of us in a picture. I was never the center of it. And as soon as you start building a brand and a business, it's like, I am the brand. So I have to be front and center. And I was really uncomfortable with it. And it actually took my kids pushing me towards it in a more positive way of saying, like, here's some cool things that you can find out and you can make friends and, you can see see other people that have interests. So it was kind of interesting seeing it through their eyes at such a young age before they were too like overwhelmed with, I got to be exactly like that. Now, a few years later, a little bit different. So I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, for sure. Cynthia, you have any thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I actually have a quote that in a world chasing algorithms, you have to understand that the most important code is authenticity, right? So like I said earlier, I am a pageant consultant and I train my girls to really have a strong inner self. So yes, you'll see the comparisons, but if you have a true foundation of who you are, I think that helps eliminate that and you have a foundation to build on. So yes, the comparison culture is definitely legit. You have to acknowledge that challenge, but also build your authenticity and have a firm foundation in who you are, and that can help you as well.
But you know what's interesting is, yeah, my kids are in the age range of yours, Beth, and older probably, and we didn't have that kind of issue when they were growing up, right? Because they're older. However, what I did notice during the pandemic is my granddaughters. They were all over it. Like they couldn't, it was like this addiction. And so when they would be with me, I'd be like, you better put that phone down. You with me right now. You're not with your daddy, you with me. So put the phone down. Let's dialogue, because I'm from old school. Like we didn't have this kind of stuff. And so I think the deepest teachings can go when you just sit down and communicate face to face, voice to voice with these young people, and give them a perspective that they may not be able to see from the world that they currently live in. And so it is a different arena. But again, I put the responsibility and the onus on the parents. So many parents don't want to parent their children, so they let social media do it. And that's why these kids end up having some issues with their mental health. As a registered nurse for 36 plus years, I know the good, the bad, and the ugly when kids aren't parented. And I don't want to say that every parent doesn't parent their kids, but they definitely would rather not spend as much time with their kids because they have this device that can actually free parents' time up, if I'm making myself clear. It's like, you have this device, go play on your phone, let me cook dinner, or let me do this, or let me go here, or whatever. But in actuality, sometimes those devices aren't monitored. And so what these kids pick up is self-esteem things, because they're comparing themselves to everybody else that's like filtered their photos and whatever. They're with this person. They're putting people in the photo that they may not even be with or know. But if you're watching and seeing it, you don't know. And so there is this huge comparison to be perfect to that person on social media who does not exist. And it's very, very sad to see it. Now, ladies, have you noticed changes in your daughters, your nieces, or your granddaughters, or other young women that you may know or mentor that you honestly believe are tied to social media? And Nikki, let me go with you on that.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a difference in how the girls react, especially with volleyball. Before, we'd go to a tournament, you're locked in all day and you're focused on the sport, and that's what you're here to do. And now all of a sudden, as soon as a game is over, they're over doing TikTok dances but the one good thing I've seen is they collaborate with each other. They might have been, sort of enemies on the court, and all of a sudden they're collaborating on the side and making friends. So in real life. So even though it's like a digital thing where there is some negative connotation, I'm also seeing a little bit of positive aspects of like, it does give them a way to actually communicate with each other in a language they both know. So.
I love that. That's good to share, because, we always see the negative, but then when you think of what you just shared, it could be, positive as well. So, Beth, any thoughts on this question?
Well, I actually have two nieces that, and I don't really see them anymore, but when I do, I see them on social media, and it's the, picture in the thing and this and that. And I was like, if my brother was alive to see it, he would have been very upset, because they're obsessed with it. I don't have that, but and I'm a grandmother too, so but she's little. I think the most important thing that you said is parenting. And as soon as my children were born, I was the parent and went through a bad divorce, and I was a single mother. And my biggest thing, I was a stay-at-home mother, then I had to work, but I knew that the parent part of me was never going to stop. And it hasn't stopped, as I'm sure you know, that no matter how old they are, you're still their mother and they still need to be parented, even though I do have a 40-year-old and she just definitely needs some parenting. And it's a shame to see people who don't, and I see it around me in other people I know, and I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I agree. Parenting is not a part-time, do it sometimes, and dip out, do it, it's a full-time job and it's a full-time responsibility. And what I see in today's world with these kids is they tend to believe everything they see on social media as reality when it's really not. And so I think that's where it becomes important for us, for parents, to step in and one, monitor what your kids are doing. Because I see little 3-year-olds on their cell phones looking at stuff. It's like, what is a 3-year-old? Why don't you have a book in front of that kid? I hate to say these kids aren't as bright as we were as back in the day because they have access to so much material that it becomes overwhelming. And parents utilize the phones as a babysitter for their kids. And so it's a sad situation, but I think a lot of times things occur because we're just not cognizant of it. But once we become more cognizant of it, then that's when we can begin to make, changes that actually impact our children's lives in the future in a really positive way. And so, yeah, social media is good and it has its goods and its bad. But when it comes to mental health, and we saw this so much during the COVID days where people that looked like they were doing all kind of stuff, people that you think they had the dream life were committing suicide. And you had to step back and be like, well, on social media, they put it in this life like they, doing everything and everything is fabulous. And then they died, they kill themselves. So there's a huge disconnect. And I think some of these parents don't quite get it. But I think the best thing that we can do is have a conversations with our young ladies, continual conversations. They may not want to hear what you got to say, but they will listen. Or wait, they may not listen what you want to say, but they'll hear it, and it'll come back up later with they'll hear your voice saying something that you told them, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember mom said that. So, it's ongoing, and it's not, I don't think it's going to get any better, but the more awareness we can bring to it, hopefully the better we can have these future generations come and stepping into the world who's going to be taking care of us when we're all older. So let me ask this next question. So what messages about beauty success and womanhood do you see being pushed hardest online right now? And I got a few, not just for the kids, but for women our ages as well. So let's go with you, Kimberly.
I think there's several things. I think one of the top things that I'm seeing right now, especially think about success, all this thing about women being independent and you not needing a partner, you don't need a man, you don't need anyone. They're pushing you can do it all by yourself, which is not a bad thing. And the women's independence is a good thing, but they're making it out to be that I feel that they're changing the culture where women can be alone. And that can be okay. You don't need the person. And I think the opposite is happening, where back in the day, they were pushing people to be married. People who were single were made to feel bad. Now the people who are married to made to feel like they're depending on the man and they're submissive and they can't do anything on their own. I think the role now, the message is being reversed. So I'm seeing a lot of that. Go out and do things on your own. All you need is your girls. You don't need your man. You don't need your partner. You don't need your spouse. Whatever it is, you can have success and it can look like this. And now the way they're portraying it, people are feeling like they're not successful unless it looks that way.
I think also now when you think about, all of the GLP-1 medication, which I think is great for people, you know what I mean, to get that. People need the jump start, people need the assistance for weight loss. But I think now what's happening is people are feeling like, well, once again, here are the body image issues. And if you're not thin, if you're not a certain weight, if you're not looking a certain way, then maybe this is the route I need to take because this is what everyone else is doing. So I think it's what keeps happening over and over again is every year there's a different trend. There's a different motivation to either be successful, to look a certain way, to feel a certain way, what healthy looks like. And if you're a person who are looking for social media to guide you, then every year you're going to do something different. And it doesn't mean it is the right thing for you to do, but if everyone else is doing it, then I need to do it. And then sometimes there may be negative consequences for you.
I agree. I agree. Another, I see the GLP-1 and all the, peptides and things of that nature. And again, this is the nurse in me. If you don't correct what's up here, you can take all the drugs in the world. As soon as you stop taking those drugs, you revert back to the habits that led you to where you wanted to take the drugs, right? So yeah, it's good that they've made these medications available, particularly for people that have diabetes, heart conditions, things of that nature. But it's not a fix. It's not a fix for what you need to fix up here. And so I think we need to address the issues up here, which no one is doing. The other thing I see a lot of is, the skin serums to make you look young. If you just took care of yourself and had better health, you don't need all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can go on social media right now and 5 things will pop up on your scroll that has to do with, microneedling or some Korean skin thing, or you can enhance your lips, or, and it's like, so again, they feed to us what they want us to buy. Back then it was like the market dictate to what people buy, or do people dictate to the market what they should buy? And I think the market dictates to what people buy. The more they promote it, the more you see it, the more you think you need it, even if you're beautiful in your own self right. So there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff that these kids got to deal with, but that's when the parents got to be parents and actually have those conversations. And every conversation you have with your child is not going to be roses and sweetie and peaches and cream. Sometimes you need to get up in them and let them know that the reality is outside of their little box that they carry and they look at multiple times, or it's glued to their face. That's not the real world. That's the fake world. And you can appear any way you want to in the fake world. When you get out and look for that job and you get treated some kind of way that you wasn't expecting, because you're looking at social media thinking it's this way, and you get your feelings hurt, then that becomes another mental health challenge that now we got to deal with these people going into their 20s. So it's a very interesting didactic, but I think right now it's just being brought to the forefront of people's minds that we really do need to monitor what our children do on social media, and give them correct them when there's correction that needs to be given. My next question is, how do we balance using social media as a tool for business connection, visibility, without letting it dictate our value or the value that we bring? And let me start with you. I'm going to start with you, Cynthia, on that one.
Yeah, thank you for starting with me, actually. I think social media is an excellent platform for promoting your business, because you can promote your business brand and you can also promote your personal brand. However, I do believe that in order for someone to be very confident in who they are, I believe in God, you need to know your source, right? You need to know what that individual, what God says about you. Have that inner strength, and that's going to help you separate. That's your business. You want to be known for your business. You want to be great. You want to have your business be known and be number one, but you also have to be confident in who you are and know that you are also beautiful. I'll tell a short story. My pageant beauties, they compete all the time, and they see on social media, right? They compare themselves to other pageant girls. And they say, Miss Apia, my gosh, this girl is so beautiful. And I said, sweetie, but you are beautiful too. You have skills and talents that you need to be aware of, and just know that just because that person might have longer hair, look at your hair, you have short hair, but it frames your face, right? So you need to just be confident in who you are, know yourself, and be confident and know that you're beautiful from within.
I love that. Beautiful from within. And again, that's, I think, where the parents need to say, you know, you are beautiful. God created you this way for a reason. There's no one on the planet like you, even identical twins. They may look alike, but they're not exactly alike. And so own the essence of the beauty that the divine created you to be, and know the beauty in that is knowing that there's no one else on the planet that vibes like you. And sometimes girls get shamed, like particularly African American girls, for our hair. You know, I got shamed growing up because I have spots on my face. I got,
And I'm never.
you know, but I was back in the day where, you know, I don't care. I didn't really care what you thought, because I was told that these were kisses from angels or kisses from the sunshine, right? Somebody told me that when I was a little girl, and I love my freckles. And then I had people asking me as I was growing up, probably in my, I'll say as I'm reaching 20, they're like, so how did you get those? I'm like, God gave them to me. No, is there somewhere I can go and get those? And I'm like, you know what? It's funny. I was shamed as a kid for having them. Dirt. I didn't wash my face. I had dirt spots on my face. But the whole context is just, you know, we're all beautiful. We all bring uniqueness to the world. And I think we just need to recognize each individual's beauty in their uniqueness. And we need to stop comparing ourselves to some made up, filtered to death person on social media. You know, I've seen people that I know, I'm like, girl, I know you don't look like that, right? Or I know how much you really weigh, you know? Don't be ashamed. God created you to be a special person, and that's the beauty in all of us. We're special and we're unique, and we should own it and not really, you know, think about comparing ourselves to others. Because I guarantee you're comparing yourself to a person who might be comparing themselves to you. And then you might wish you had their hair, and they might wish they had your booty or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. Okay, ladies, have you or someone you love dealt with online bullying, harassment, or shaming? And if so, what impact did it have? Let's go ahead and have you, Nikki. Have you had anyone like that in your family that happened to?
Yeah, that's definitely happened with my kids, and it's been really difficult to deal with because it's something that happens, you know, outside of school. So even if it's someone that's a classmate, it's not something you can very easily take to the school and say, hey, go resolve this. It's not like back in the day where you got knocked down in the playground and then, you know, you could go tell the teacher and someone came over. Now there is no safe place. It's you go home and that phone is still there and that app is still there and everybody saw it, not just, you know, who might have been around you at the time. So it's definitely something that we continue to talk to the kids about how they're acting online with their friends, and also like when things do happen that they're not comfortable with, you know, making sure that they tell us right away and making sure it's an open door for that and for their friends. Because sometimes other parents, like you said, may not be paying attention or may not really understand. But because it is part of my business, I do understand it on a deeper level. So we always try to just make sure we're talking about like, what are you actually looking at? And we have control on their phones to be able to see what's really happening. So.
Yeah, I agree. Interesting that you bring that up, the bullying, because I saw a post today where I guess the dad was called because his son had got suspended from school for bullying another kid. And so the dad said, I thought, you want to bully? Well, let me do something to make you feel a little embarrassed. So he dressed up in his wife's fuchsia pink 5-inch heels. He had a little mini skirt on with a fuchsia pink top and some old jacked up wig, you know, all unshaven and stuff. And he came to pick up his kid who was suspended for bullying another kid. And, you know, all the kids are in the background taking photos and laughing. And the kid is like walking with the head in shame, right? But the funny part was he was like, I'll be damned if I'm raising a bully. If you want to bully, like now when you go back to school after the suspension, guess what? People are going to be laughing at you because I showed up like I did to teach you a lesson. And I thought that was hilarious. You know, I thought, oh, that's so funny. You know, that's so funny. And it's true. Yeah. There's a lot of bullying that goes on. So if you are a parent, I'm sorry, I keep slipping off the chair. If you are a parent and your kids' friends come and hang out with you, have dialogue with them. I used to do that with my kids, my boys and my daughter. Their friends always want to come at my house, and I was always asking, "What you doing? Who you doing? Where you doing? Where you going? What you, how you doing in school?" Da da da. I always knew, and so when the other parents, like I would hang out with the other parents, and they'd be like, "Why don't you know that?" I said, "Because I talk to the kids. If you want to know what's going on, you talk to the kids, and you give them space to tell you. You quiet, you listen, because they'll talk, and sometimes they talk and not realizing what they're saying. Oh, they need to say too much, but you give them that space. You will always know what's going on with the kids. If you don't give them space or even open up dialogue with them, you're never going to know, and they're never going to feel comfortable talking with you. So it was really interesting, but you know, these kids today that, like I said, they're in their 30s and their 40s, if they see me, they'll be like, "Hey, mama, you know, Rochelle, remember when we talked about this? Or remember I told you this and you told me how to deal with it?" And then, like, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it takes a village to raise children. And in today's society, it takes a county. A county, it takes a county to raise, or maybe you know, a whole city, but you know, I mean, a whole state, but it's just a different ball game. Okay, now I still want to go on with that question that, you know, have you or someone in your family ever had to deal with online bullying? And if you did, how did you handle it? And what about you, Beth? I mean, I know your kids are older too, but you got nieces and nephews, and so.
Yeah, I would say no on all of that. There was bullying pre social media, and I was at my kids' school a lot doing, whether it's with substituting, whatever. And I knew who the bullies were in school. And I went to the parents and I said, you know, your daughter said this, or there would be a birthday party and my daughter and one other kid was not invited. And I said to the parents, how do you do that? Like that, what kind of message are you sending to your child? I always told my daughters, either you're inviting all the girls in the class, whether they were liked or not, because that's not the way we do things. It's not nice to exclude people. And so I went directly to the parent and said, what kind of message are you sending your child by, you know, bullying or excluding? But I do want to say one thing that Kimberly said about what a woman should be. It's a big thing now, and I've seen it on news programs where these young girls, and they probably are in the 20s ish, are saying, yeah, I don't need a man, I don't want to do this. And I think it's sad, because it's the way you go into a relationship sometimes, and most of the time, a man, and I've been divorced, so a man can make your life so much better, but it doesn't mean you're dependent on them. And the other thing I see is, you know, where these young girls, well, I don't cook and I don't clean. And it's like, I taught my daughters how to cook and clean and there's nothing wrong with knowing how to do those things. And now it's like, why you cook? Why would you cook? Why wouldn't you cook? I mean, there's nothing wrong with some of those, and I don't want to call them old fashioned, because I do it. Knowing how to do those things. It doesn't mean you have to do it every day or whatever, but I taught them my grandmother's recipes. It's just something you have to instill what they came from, whatever ethnicity, you want them to grow up with that, and that makes them a better person.
Here's where I'm gonna disagree with you. I think nobody needs anybody else. They need to love themselves first. When you start needing somebody, you become dependent upon that person to make your life happy, right? And so I didn't raise my boys or my girls to need anybody to make them feel some kind of way. You only need yourself. And when you're
Yeah.
standing independent and true to yourself, then you can attract the right partner. But to say I needed a man, I needed a
No,
man
no,
to
no.
procreate, but anything else, I didn't need a man for. Of course, you want to be in a loving relationship and all of that, but I don't need a man. And I don't think we should teach our children that they need a significant other.
No. Yeah,
You know
no,
what I'm saying?
I
So,
didn't, yeah, I
yeah.
didn't say that.
Yeah.
I didn't say
So,
that.
okay, ladies. Kimberly, what are your thoughts on that question? Do you want me to repeat it?
Yes, can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, the question is, um, uh, have you, it was about online bullying.
Oh, the online bullying question.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
no, I have not. My daughter is now 23. She didn't deal with that either. And I think with my nieces and nephews, I have not seen that online. But I do know that for one of my little cousins, and I want to say he is in the fifth grade now. So last year in the fourth grade, he struggled with having a couple of bullies at school. So these were like on, on the at the school grounds. And my aunt, which is his grandmother, is raising him. And she had to go to the school a lot. And she would say, Kim, I may need you to come up there, and act like you're his therapist or just be the in-house family therapist to help me manage this. Because what was happening was, the teachers were not really doing anything. The parents were not trying to get involved, and it kept going on and on and on and on. And then the times when he felt brave enough to defend himself, then he was getting in trouble and not the bullies. And so I'm finding that it doesn't really matter. It's not even all about online anymore. Bullies are still existing in person and online. And I think we've had this same issue for so many years and nothing is constantly being done about it. But it's so interesting because I saw on social media a few days ago there, and I don't know if it was a skit or not. And people even in the comments were like, even if it was a skit, it was a great skit where a woman took her child to the house because she knew where the family lived. And she told the mom, your son is bullying my son. My son is coming home crying. My son is coming home embarrassed. He's having a hard time. And he was talking about his clothes. He didn't have name brand clothes, name brand shoes. And the mom of the person that was doing the bullying made the son take off his Jordans, give them to him, and made them exchange shoes. And he said, tomorrow you're going to go to school with the non-name brand shoes, and you're going to see what it feels like to be bullied and to walk in his shoes and to be the one that people talk about and to be the one that people call dirty and call the names. And it was so good how the parents communicated and worked together. And I think that's what needs to happen. Like you said, Beth, when you go to the parents, and these days it's hard because parents are not like they used to be. You know what I mean? I'm 48 years old and and I'm just thinking about even when I was growing up, it was a completely different story than what it is now. And it's so difficult because you have to be careful. And these parents are modeling this behavior for their children. And they don't think that there's anything wrong with it. And so I think about my cousin. And he had a really, really hard time. And I'm hoping that this school year is different for him. But I think if the administration and the school will stand up and have anti-bullying campaigns and have zero tolerance for certain things, it would change the culture that's happening in our schools.
I love it. Another thing I think they should do is implement phone check-in. When you get to school, check that phone in. You get your phone at the end of the day. And I would say that would be all the way from elementary all through, up in high school, because you'll have a lot more attention, the
Yeah.
kids' attention versus, them being distracted doing this and stuff. So,
And they're
yeah.
on social media in class while the teacher is instructing.
Oh,
They're on social media. They're
girl,
doing all the
yes.
things.
They texting, girl, you took this math test. What was the answer to number 7? You know what I'm saying? It's or downloading AI and answer to the question. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's definitely a different generation for sure. Definitely. Okay, ladies, let me ask you this question. What conversations do we need to have with our young girls about social media that we're not talking about or having these conversations enough with them? And I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Cynthia.
Okay. Well, I think it's good to teach young women confidence, right? And confidence comes from all different levels, right? Being competent in your skill set. I know we are in a comparing culture right now, but you have to know what you are good at, what makes you confident. So I think there's a lot of personal development that needs to go on so the young ladies understand that they are great and not to compare themselves. So that's what I'll start with.
Love it. Yeah, because there's no comparison. There really isn't. Everybody has a unique gift that they bring, and I think it's beautiful. Okay, ladies, last question of the evening. If the algorithm suddenly changed, could you let me rephrase the question. If the algorithm suddenly changed, could you hear your voice? What would you want it to stop doing and start doing for young women and young girls or girls growing up? And so, Nikki, I'll go ahead and start back with you.
Yeah, I would just love it to be more positive. I think right now there's so much emphasis on the negative. And if there are positive things that the kids are interested in their life, then show them those things. Show them kids going to college, going to a trade school, excelling at a sport, something that's good for them. They like reading, even video games, like some of it's okay. And just start to show them something that's a little bit more positive than all this nonsense of just, it's very violent, it's very exaggerated. Now there's a lot of like AI fake stuff in it. And so I just really wish it was like no filter, real life, and real people making big achievements with their hard-earned talent, right? So for me, that would be a big one.
Thanks, Nikki. Beth, what about you?
I go back to being a parent and teaching them, like Nikki said, my one daughter was in sports, one daughter was into cooking, and the other one, well, I think she was into partying, but the social media, and it's interesting, my 40-year-old has my granddaughter's going to be 3, and even at 3 years old, she times her on screen time and says, okay, that's it. And she understands that. And what she'll do is she'll take her books and she'll put her stuffed animals and read them. And so I'm happy that my voice got into my daughters for all these years. But if I had younger daughters, and I'm kind of glad that I'm not on that end. Yes, confidence. It doesn't. Don't look at the other things. Look at yourself, because there's so much to everybody as their own. They bring their own something special in there. And I also think that if you do see a child who's in trouble,
let me take another person's thoughts on this as well, because we're coming up close to our time. Kimberly, what are your thoughts on this question?
I think I would like for it to stop automatically showing everything and anything. And somehow there's this filter that only filters age appropriate, information. And that if it does, something happens to get through the algorithm, that it knows how to automatically block it. I really wish that was happening, because the children are able to access anything. So once you put in your age and it says what age you are, there's like a range of things that algorithm would only show that person based on their age.
I love that. I love that. What about your thoughts, Cynthia? Okay, we'll go to Nikki.
I agree with what Kimberly said. They actually have teen accounts now on Instagram. Can you hear me? Can you
Yes.
hear me now?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes, they have. So on to Kimberly's point, I agree with that. But they also have teen accounts. And what I would love to see more on the algorithm to push out because I know how they work. I've created systems from the ground up, is that to push more of God's word to young women as well, and really focus on Matthew's chapter 25, verse 14 through 30, the parable of talents, because some people don't understand or don't know the talents that they bring. And so they feel like they're walking around that I have to compare myself. But if you really know what the word says about you, there will be no comparison. There will be no envy, and there will be no jealousy.
I love it. Love it. I love it. I'm not about pushing people's religious preferences out in the world, but I love the positive message that you just said with regards to that. That was beautiful. And Nikki.
Oh, well, I kick things off with the positive one. But I just think of those friendly reminders of don't forget to eat right, sleep well, do your homework. I think like Beth said, like, how do you get it to be a little bit more of a parent and a little less of a best friend?
Yeah. I really liked what Kimberly shared about the age appropriate thing. Okay, I'm old school, but I have a huge problem with a 3-year-old on a phone or an iPad. And I see it. I travel a lot and I see these kids and they're on their iPad or their phone, and the parents are sitting there and they're on their iPads and their phone, and there's no conversation with the children. What does a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, hell, even somebody under 7 need to be? Why do they need a phone? Why do they need to be on social media? You know what I mean? So, again, I'm old school, but to each his own. It's just me voicing my opinion, just like anyone else. It's just, I think sometimes parents get busy and social media becomes a babysitter. And I don't know how old you ladies are, but back in my day, I had conversations with my mom. I had conversations with my dad, my aunts, my uncles. I may have been asking questions that were inappropriate, and I would get corrected if they were inappropriate, or I may have said something because I was the only granddaughter in both sides of the family. So I was always saying something because I had a mouth. I was always getting popped in the mouth because my mouth I just say it. And I would always hear, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. But yet still, today, in today's society, we're so dependent upon having social media in the lives of our children that sometimes we forget that we need to be the parent and actually be that instrumental, influential person in our children's lives that they go to versus reaching for that social media box for advice or suggestions or whatever. So I want to thank you, ladies. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate all of you being here with me this evening. I know you had to take time away from your families to do this, and I really do appreciate it. And queens that are watching us, hopefully this conversation hit home, because whether or not you grew up with the social media era that we're in now, or you're living with its impact and the effect that it's having on everybody in the world, my heart goes out to you. To the beautiful panelists that showed up today, this evening, thank you for your honesty, your stories, and your wisdom on navigating this digital world without losing our souls in the process. I don't know who's got this stuff on, but to every woman watching, remember, you are more than your profile, your photos, than your follower count. The most important audience that you have is yourself. So put down your social media device right now, if you can. Find a mirror, look at that beautiful person looking back at you in that mirror, in those beautiful eyes, and tell her that she really does matter and she really does mean something. And there's no one on the planet or in this world that can do the things that she does, because she was divinely created for a specific purpose. If this episode made you think differently about your screen time or the young women in your life, share it. Please share it. Let's make sure our daughters know their worth is deeper than that double tap or that heart emoji or that subscribe button that so many of the TikTokers are subscribing to. And of course, if you like the show, please don't forget to subscribe to the show so that we can bring a voice of reason, so to speak, to the masses in the world. And I just want to say that I am Dr. Rochelle Marie Lawson, your queen of feeling fabulous, and this has been the Bold Unstoppable Show. Next time, protect your mind, guard your heart, and remember you are already enough with or without a filter. And until next time, ladies and everybody watching, take good care and stay
Bye.
Bye.